Well, hello friends, and welcome to a new video on this channel. Now today, we're going to be doing something that's a little bit different from what I usually do. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you might have seen my previous sketchbook tours. Those are always so much fun to record and talk through, especially my first one ever that I recorded, which was a compilation of a bunch of sketchbooks from back when I was like 9 years old, which is really exciting. After that, I did another sketchbook tour of a very important sketchbook that holds a lot of meaning for me, and you can check that out if you want to know more about it. And the most recent one was the one where my work started to look a little bit more professional and I finally got to become a freelance artist. So that in itself was really special as well. But recently some things have changed, especially at the end of last year when I decided to really go all in on my digital art, and unfortunately my sketchbook habits kind of faded a little bit with time. So I was looking back at my work and I realized that I didn't really have a sketchbook to create a new sketchbook tour with, which was a little bit upsetting. I do enjoy a good old sketchbook tour, but at the same time, I realized I do have so much work that I've done already this year. How fun would it be to actually do a tour of all of the art that I've made so far? So instead of a sketchbook tour, let's call it an art tour. And this one is going to be mainly of digital works that I've done recently. So we're going to go through all of the illustrations that I've made so far this year, go through all of my thoughts, the things I've learned from them, and what has kind of made my work evolve throughout these past few months. I do want to make a little introduction first, so if you want to skip ahead, check the description below and find out the timestamp so you can skip around and watch only what you want to see. But first, let me get into the reason that made me decide that maybe sketchbooks weren't the best for me at this time. So if you've seen my work, especially around last year, I was really into traditional artwork in general. So I used to draw a lot on paper with alcohol markers, colored pencils, even on my sketchbooks, of course. And all of it was so much fun. It was what I really wanted to do at the time, so it was the right thing to do. But it was also a symptom of me letting go of some of my love for digital art. I was feeling a little bit stuck with it. I felt a little bit unmotivated and felt like things had stagnated a little bit. So I went all out on drawing with traditional mediums, and this included working with lots of references, making studies, making just fun ideas and combinations of materials, and I had so much fun. I really did. But then I looked back and I realized that I didn't really have any more of those complete illustrations done for myself. I still had quite a few. I had plenty of digital illustrations as well last year. Here are some of my favorites, for example. I do love the look and feel of them. We even ended up creating a calendar where I got to really portray all of my favorite pieces from 2024. And you can even see the difference that my digital work had already gone up from a year like 2022. I was getting better at using colors, lighting, moods, and I was always inspired to create more ambitious ideas, especially working from concepts that felt a little bit more magical and ethereal, fun stories that I wanted to see come to life. But alas, I was stretched a little bit too thin between all of the different materials that I could use to create my art. And so at the end of the year, I got myself my first iPad ever. It was a weird experience. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it for drawing purposes, but I was really betting on it. And it did make such a big difference. I got new brushes and experimented with new workflows, but most of all, it was really exciting to be able to just draw anywhere. Whenever I used to draw digitally, I was always cooped up in my office, and it felt really lonely, and it felt like something that if I wanted to do, I had to get here, sit down, turn on my computer, and try to do things from there. And now instead, I can draw on my couch or on my bed. I can scribble down ideas whenever I want. It's so much more accessible and friendly that it ended up being a lot more helpful than I ever thought it could be. And now I've been drawing digitally almost every day, which is kind of crazy to say. I've also been sketching a lot digitally, which is super fun, a lot more fun than I remembered. I always felt like if I wanted to make something digital, it had to be absolutely rendered, because if you can, you should, which is not a real thing. But that's how my brain worked back then. And now looking at it as almost like a portable sketchbook that I can just open up and draw whenever I want, I started to sketch more things that I enjoy, doing more studies, improvising a little bit and having fun with lots of experiences that might actually improve my digital work as well. And from those sketches, we even created a new Sunday post every Sunday on Patreon, which is called our Sunday Sketches, where I simply post all of my sketches from that week, which have been so much fun to make and have been helping me to ground myself and be able to do a fully detailed and rendered piece in one day, but still be able to sit down, calm down a little bit, and just sketch for myself. But with all of this, I have suddenly found a renewed love and passion for digital art. I've made plenty of illustrations this year. I've had so much fun with colors, with stories, with concepts, and it's been super fun to be able to share it with you as well. So, like I mentioned before, we did do lots of traditional artworks in the beginning of the year. I actually started just in February. I took a month-long break through January, which was really needed. And when I came back, I was so much more refreshed and ready to get started. It was a good choice. And so I still made a few traditional drawings, and even on Patreon, we still made some step-by-steps and process videos. But I was already getting the feeling that things were changing a little bit and that I could finally try to give my ideas a full chance digitally. An important thing to mention as well is that I ended up reducing the amount of work that I posted every week so that I could actually have the time to create all of these pieces. Because realistically, I could draw something like this, for example, in just a couple of hours, maybe 2.5 hours, and have a blast, post it, share it, and be happy. But if I wanted to create a full illustration with a full concept, all rendered and all planned out from the beginning, lately my pieces have turned out to become more so 5 hours to 8 hours, sometimes even more if I'm really feeling it. So I needed to have the time to do that. So I started to post a little bit less. And as it turns out, that was a great choice because now I have so much work done, so many things to be proud of, but that's also because I gave myself the chance and the time to do that. Also, as a little disclaimer, this is my full-time job. I'm a freelance illustrator, and so I do have the time to draw every day. And I know that's not the case for everyone, whether you're a student or working. I've been in all of those situations, and it would be crazy for me to assume that I could do this if I was in that situation. So just a quick reminder, you don't have to rush it. You don't have to make a million illustrations or just a few. You should just do what's right for you. So in the spirit of slowing down a little bit, and instead of rushing forward, trying to look backwards a little bit and soak in all of the work that we've made, let's go through all of my illustrations of 2025. So let's check out one of the first drawings of this year, which was really ambitious if I'm being honest. Not only did I want to make more digital works, I wanted to create some sticker sheets. And the first one that I created ever was the witch, which was so fun to make. I have them all here in front of me so that I can share with you and show you. And this was the first one I made. I was really nervous and really excited at the same time. I had this all planned out for an entire collection. And so the first one's always more nerve-wracking, but I do really love these colors and this character as well. I'm hoping to draw all of my characters again soon. Then we had this piece, this green and blue piece that I really liked doing. The fun thing here was that I was actually really inspired by the idea of being able to draw things traditionally and then make some finishing touches digitally. This was my time of being able to mix both mediums and see what I could do with them. And if you're my patron, you've heard me say this a million times. This is basically everything I talked about at that time, was me trying to find ways of mixing both worlds. It's something that excited me so much, and in here, it's something that I explored. So I took advantage of all of the textures that you can see in the paper, all of the colored pencils, all of the beautiful colors, all of the little messy mixes that you can really only get once you do things traditionally. But at the very end, I made up some little touch-ups digitally, which made it even better, and I was really happy with this one. I also created a step-by-step process in PDF format, and you'll see throughout this video just how many of these we have: step-by-steps, process videos, and cozy art corners. Then we had my first actual digital spread of the year, which is really exciting for me. This because I had a weird mentality, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but whenever I was creating spreads on a sketchbook, meaning like drawing many elements or a character in different poses and exploring that sort of world. I felt really comfortable and happy, and I really enjoyed the process. But when it comes to doing that digitally, I just wasn't used to it. I felt like if I wanted to do things digitally, I had to create a full illustration that had to be perfect from beginning to end and have a fun composition and be just right. But I forgot how much fun I could just have with drawing maybe a character and exploring it, drawing it in different poses, adding different characters and emotions. And that sounds very obvious, but I just wasn't used to doing that digitally. And here was the first time where I really wanted to just give it a try. I had so much fun working with this one, especially with the rim lighting. It feels so vibrant and bright and happy, and I love these two. I think friendship is something that I've been kind of exploring lately. You'll see relationships between animals and people or two people. I just love seeing them interact. I think that's cool. And this experiment in particular made me really happy. And then we have our first fully completed illustration that I made, which was around February, around Valentine's Day, so you can clearly see the theme. Essentially, I was inspired by this concept called kintsugi. You might have heard it before. It's this technique where artisans sort of break usually ceramics and glue it back up together with this sort of golden adhesive, which essentially makes your piece even more beautiful after it's broken than when it was whole to begin with. And if you know me and you've known my work, you know just how cheesy I am. I love when I get to explore themes like that just sound so beautiful, and you can sort of replicate it towards a more emotional thing where someone, even though they are heartbroken, they can become even better and greater because of what they've overcome, all of that cheesy stuff. And this one was definitely one of those. So she's essentially fixing it all with love, with a little heart. I thought that was really cool. And here you can also see some changes from my previous works where I'm starting to add a lot more textures. Like, this is something that I didn't do as much. I was always very neat, especially with digital art. I wanted everything to be very cleaned up. I could stay in the rendering stage for ages, but here, I don't know, I just felt that this needed some texture, some roughness, and I started getting used to the feeling and appreciating the roughness of all of these edges, the textured brushes that are left a little bit imperfect, even the outlines that aren't super pristine. I think that they add something and I really enjoy it. So this one was also accompanied by a full process video where I talk through the entire thing, my thoughts, my sketches, my entire sort of workflow and how I achieve this look, which is super fun to film. And I also really liked to make this sort of like little details in the background. They were really fun to make, just to add something extra to this character. And then we have these mermaids. Essentially in my brain, it's the mom and the daughter. And I just wanted to, again, paint sort of an intimate moment between two characters. It felt really, especially in the sketching stage, I remember, it felt really nice and cozy and warm, but somehow I got to a color palette that I fell in love with, mixing up these teals with the pinks. I remember this one took a long time because of all of those little scales, but at the same time, it was also when I discovered my love for transparent fabrics. And you can keep count of them in this video. You can make like a drinking game out of it and see just how many transparent fabrics you'll see. Those are just so much fun to render. This one is pretty subtle still, but it was really great to find out different techniques and ways of achieving this look. Plus, creating very vibrant highlights and colorful ones too. This was a really satisfying piece to work with. And plus that vibrant, like dark blue is so gorgeous. I love it. Then we have our second sticker sheet from our collection, which is the Lover. This one again came out I think in February or close to that, and so it was all about love and all about the cheesiness. So I created all of these different elements that go with her. She has like an arrow through her heart, but clearly she isn't broken. She has that sneaky look and I appreciate it. I love the playfulness of it, and again, the colors, the pinks. Every year that passes, I just fall in love with more colors, and pink is definitely one of them. Then we have another full process video on Patreon of this piece. This one was a traditional piece. I did some touches digitally, but they were really minimal. It was just one thing or two, but here it is. I really like it as well. This one, I appreciated it even more because of the textures and the little patterns. It was just really fun to make. It's that sort of process where you can shut your brain off and just create those little patterns. There were a few things I wish I would have done, but it was also one of the first times I worked with this paper, and I really liked being able to add those little highlights with white. It was so much fun. And then we have another spread of a new character. This one, you might recognize it from one of the first YouTube videos I did this year. This was super cool to make just because I was really inspired by this bright green color with those little yellow highlights. It was so fun and lighthearted. It was nothing too serious. I just wanted to explore a character like this. Maybe reading in the forest with their bunny friends, maybe sneaking out at night, something that's just cute and sweet for the heck of it. Plus, I really liked these dark blues, like vibrant dark blue, against all of that bright green. I think it worked really nicely. And then we had what I think was our first cozy art corner of the year. This one was really special because it was a little bit crazy. I wanted to do something very playful and colorful and from the imagination, so very bright and a little bit all over the place. But I really liked this one. I remember how happy I was at the time when it was turning out nicely. It's very rough around the edges, but I think I like it because of that as well. It was actually not the first cozy art corner. This was the first cozy art corner we made. Inking is always fun, so this one was really great as well. These cozy art corners, if you don't know, are sessions where we just draw in real time. It's a pre-recorded video, so it's just me drawing here in my office. Usually it's a video of like 2.5 hours to 3 hours where I draw something from start to finish, but essentially it's meant for you to draw along with me without any pressures or any plans. We just pick up our favorite materials and go from there. And this, you can see, was really sketchy. You can still see it underneath. It was really rough and quick, but it ended up being a lot more fun than I expected, and I still love all of these colors together. Then we have what I assume is our runaway bride. This one, I had a version with a veil and without one, and I asked you guys what you preferred. A lot of the people loved the veil, which I think was really cool, but this one, despite the fact that I just really like the colors, I remember this one specifically because I learned a few things. Now at this time, I was starting to add some texture in the bottom of my drawings, meaning instead of working on a flat white surface on my canvas, I started to add some textured paper underneath just to give me something to not be as intimidating, and also with a little bit of color, so like a little bit of toned paper. And it was so much fun to realize that I could work off of that. It felt a lot more comforting and friendly to start drawing. And also, this was the time where I started to work with some different effects and overlays, which I wasn't used to doing before. Again, I think I was just sort of a traditional artist at heart, and I just wasn't used to thinking of layers and effects that much, just maybe a couple. But here I was feeling a little bit stuck with my colors, and I remember shifting things a little bit, trying to work with some adjustments, work with crazy overlays that I had never used, and it turns out that I found some colors like this sort of green color, which worked so beautifully here that it opened up my eyes to new possibilities, especially seeing how it works like this dark green with the bright pink. It's just beautiful. I love it. And the pops of red, it was so much fun. And here is another fun one. I remember this one because it was the first time this year that I created a digital piece from a traditional sketch, which was this one right here. I really love this technique of being able to start off with the traditional base and add colors digitally. I think it's super fun. And you can also see a bit of a tendency that I've started to get at this point, which was starting with the bright colors first. I'm so happy that I've took this turn sort of, because I remember that my brain was always stuck on the idea of coloring things as they are, meaning trying to find a color for the skin, a color for the hair, and so on, and not realizing that I can actually start off with the bright and crazy colors first and then figure it out. And here, this mix of pink and orange was so satisfying to work with. And inspired by that, I took the opportunity after I posted it to actually create a new one and create a step-by-step to exactly show how I create this effect and how I usually add color to my traditional pieces. This is the original drawing that I made with pen and ink on paper. It's pretty simple, like composition-wise, but still detailed enough to have lots of fun coloring in all of those little details. And again, all of those bright colors are just shining through. And to me, one of the most important parts of creating something like this is just to make sure that I don't erase any of the traditional work below it, meaning I don't do much of overpainting here. I don't cover up the drawing itself that's underneath. I try to make sure that even some of the texture of the paper is still shown through. I hope you can kind of see that here. You can still see some of the tooth, some of the sketch underneath. It's so much fun, and always detailing gold and these highlights is super cool and satisfying to make as well. Then we have our next sticker sheet, which is the sprout, which I really like as well. This is one of my favorites, I think, maybe a top 3 so far, just because of the bright green, which I wasn't used to using for a really long time. And now you can tell I'm already in love with green. But just this sort of earth and nature theme was really cool to work on. And rendering her hair, I remember, was really fun. At this point, I started to find my own way of rendering certain things in a more bold way. I know it's my style, it might not be like everyone's cup of tea, but it really makes, at least for me, for a piece that's a lot more interesting, a lot more satisfying and unique, and that's something that I remember a lot about this one in particular. And then we have a new piece that was really based on a specific story and idea that I had. This one is meant to represent an angel that when they fly through the sky, essentially they catch all of those little stars in their wings and they keep a collection of them in their room. It's a simple enough idea, silly enough as well, and kind of cute, but it's what I like. All of those like small but kind of interesting stories. And I remember I had a lot of fun with this one. I had a few sketches down and I remember it took me a while to get to what I was really looking for. But having these glass little boxes where she keeps the little stars, even her expression, she feels so like mesmerized by it, almost like an obsession. I really liked it. Also, this piece, I remember it by having fun with different colored highlights. Like you can see it here, some purple or pink and yellow highlights in a dress that's otherwise blue and transparent as well. But it was so much fun to realize that you can get this ethereal look by mixing new colors that feel different and more special and not so dull and obvious. It was super cool. And also this one is accompanied by a full process video where I go through the entire thing. And this spread was made for another YouTube video, which was really fun to film. I love all of the elements of this one, especially this sword. For some reason, I really like its shapes. I also love working on a good armor, so this one was really fun to make. I was really inspired to just go with this bright red and adding all of those rim lights, even the little shines and highlights in the gold. It was really satisfying to work on. Plus, I even did a really small test to see if this one could work as a sticker sheet. I never made it available, but if you want to, I can. I'm really surprised by how detailed it still is, even in this like smaller format. But I really like this one. I kept it like this. I might just make it available. Leave me in the comments below if you'd be interested in that, because for some reason I do really love this design so much. And then we have the beetle. This is a bit of a different illustration, as you might see right away. It sort of has a bit of a different style. I remember that I was really inspired by symmetry and sort of bulky and ancient armors. So I took the liberties of creating these little designs and having fun with some symmetrical elements. Even the colors here are a little bit different from what I usually go for, but the green and red just work beautifully together. I was even more focused on the line work for this one, and I think you can tell I had a lot more time working on that than the colors. But it was really satisfying, and I still love it so much for some reason. I think it's really bold and just confident. Like, all of the shapes feel really confident. I really like it. I hope I can do more like this somehow. I feel like I go for a very soft look in almost everything that I do, so switching that up a little bit sometimes can be really fun. Here is a smaller drawing that took me maybe like a couple of hours to make. It was just for myself, and I think you can see the emotions I was feeling at the time. That artisty thing of sort of showing your emotions on your work. I was feeling a little bit low that day and things weren't working out. But when that happens, drawing really works for me. And letting out all of those feelings, just letting them be, is really helpful. And still being able to add so much color to something that's otherwise a little bit sad felt really satisfying and moody, just like the thing that I was going for. It's the thing that I needed at the time. And then we have this really fun experiment that I made, which was trying to draw digitally how I would otherwise, like on paper with a pencil or pen. So all of those little strokes, all of the little lines and textures, trying to really recreate what I would do on paper. This has become one of my favorite techniques when it comes to drawing, just like quicker drawings like this. It's so satisfying to add color underneath. Everything just has a lot of punch to it. The textures are so cool. I really like them. Again, it's one of those things that when you have to make many strokes at once, you can just sort of shut off your brain and work slowly and focus on small areas. It can be really soothing, so I like that, even as just an exercise or just something to do to have fun. And also, I started to have a lot more fun with chromatic aberration and being a little bit more messy with it. You can absolutely see that here, even on her skirt. Everything's a little bit more messy, but this was really important to me. Just being able to see how you can add some roughness to a digital piece that doesn't need to be rendered to perfection or finished completely. You can just leave it be where it is and embrace all of these imperfections as actually great things that you want to keep. And then we have the beautiful angel and devil duo of sticker sheets. There are so many already, but here they are. These were some of the more fun ones to design just because they came as a pack, like together. You can see some of the details that I sneak in through, like their eyes and those little tattoos in their ankles, sort of realizing that they're opposites, but they might just be friends or more, who knows. But all of these little elements around them were really fun to figure out. Like, this one has more ethereal elements, things that would be like in the sky and glassy and shiny, and then a bit of a darker version where everything's a bit more muted and ancient and decadent. It felt really cool. Then we have another one with stars. This particular illustration was also followed with a step-by-step process of the entire thing, and in my brain I hadn't really committed to who she is or what she's doing, but in my head she picks up all of these fallen stars and takes them home, almost maybe just like that little angel that came before. Who knows, maybe the ones that the angel doesn't take home, it's this girl right here that picks it up from the ground. Again, sort of cheesy, but it's the stuff that I love. I think it can be so magical and make it feel like a world that's not ours. It feels very peaceful and wonderful, and I really like it. Plus the pink and red, it's a combination that I've gotten really used to. It's so vibrant and pretty, I really like it. And here we have one of my favorite illustrations from this year. I think there's like a handful that I just can't let go of that I really like, and it's rare to happen, but when it does, I'm just really grateful. In this one, I'm not sure if it's because of the colors, but there's something about the roughness of it. It's not too perfect, but it's better because of that, even in her face. Some little definitions are a little bit sketchy. Even the colors that bleed through are really special. These blue highlights, and especially her clothes. again, see-through. You can see all of these highlights and all of these beautiful colors together with some more chromatic aberration. And also, this one has sort of a fun story to it because I drew this one during a blackout here in Portugal where we had no energy the entire day, so I didn't have any internet connection, just 50% battery on my iPad. And so I sat down on my couch and I was trying to get any ideas or what I could even start to do or try to work as much as I could with what I had. And somehow I started a sketch that felt a little bit random but sort of mysterious at the same time, which was this one. And I think I made it work. I really, really like it. Especially like all of that movement in this veil. It feels so satisfying. And then one of the more complete pieces that I've made this year. I'm still really proud of this one. It took me forever to complete it, but we also have a full process video of the entire thing up on Patreon. To me, again, this explores a little bit of a friendship. Maybe this character right here sneaks out at night to hang out with their mermaid friend and hangs out. So they just play games, they maybe write or draw, do anything together. It's really cute, I think. And here, for me, the colors turned out really pretty. Like these aqua colors are so soothing and calming. Plus transparencies, again, we have these transparent fabrics, but the rendering felt like a good balance of very clean, but also a little bit messy, if that makes sense. At this point, I'm starting to find a balance of where I should stop rendering things and where I should leave just a little bit of roughness and a little bit of extra texture, or things that just aren't rendered to complete perfection but are fine as is. But besides enjoying the techniques and the colors, I do love the feeling of it. It feels very intimate, like I shouldn't be looking at it. It's like their moment and I shouldn't be eavesdropping, and I like that feeling a lot. Here we have sort of a study that I made. It was a quicker one where I was really lacking on ideas and I was struggling a little bit, but then I went on a hike, and this one taught me a lot because I felt very uninspired when sitting in front of the computer. But as soon as I got out there and we went on a trail, we watched a lot of like green lagoons and mossy rocks and fallen leaves. All of that texture and color just really inspired me. And it opened my eyes to like this mentality of changing things up when you're not feeling as inspired. And I did this one inspired by that, by those references that I took, those pictures that I took at the place where I was. And she's just a mossy gal, maybe stuck here a little bit on a river. I don't know, there's some story to her, but I really enjoy it. And here we have another cozy art corner session. Here I was really inspired by the techniques that I used on that vampire drawing of that girl with the dagger, just making sure that we have lots of textures, creating a drawing underneath that feels very much like it was made on paper, but then adding colors under them and just making them bright and vibrant and fun was really satisfying. And this has really become a great way of me to explain my techniques or show you the ways that I decide to do some things, just because since this is a real-time drawing session, I get to really take my time, explore things a little bit, adjust when things don't go as well as I had planned. It really is a good look into how I draw and how I change things up in the moment, or the decisions that I make and why. So these have been a lot of fun to record as well. And we have this really fun drawing too. I remember this, it was at the height of summer. I was on my balcony, taking in all of the sun, and I remember sketching this portrait from the imagination and seeing from a reference that I had of these flowers and kind of mixing them together. It was super fun. I love these colors, and I also love the depth of how you can see all of that green peeking through at her side, like the left side of her face where it's further away from us. Different techniques that I've started to implement more, like even more textures, more saturated highlights and bright colors, and having fun with some like rougher edges and rendering styles, things that honestly I wouldn't have been able to do just a couple of years ago. And now it feels so freeing and nice. I'm so glad that I got to explore all of these new things like with an open mind It's been really cool. And then we have another spread from a YouTube video. You might have seen this one as well. This one was inspired by this mermaid. Again, there's not really a story to her, but there are colors, and this one was full of colors. I think that was the most satisfying part about this one. And also, again, I talked about it in that video, but being a little bit more rough around the edges, finding my way through texture, and realizing that my personal view of how something professional or successful was meant to look like was way off in my brain. I felt like all of this experimentation has really led me into a better place, I think. And here I'm really embracing all of that messiness of all of those colors. Even, again, another transparent fabric, even colors that shouldn't be here, highlights that sometimes don't make as much sense, but as long as you root things in a little bit of reality and just have creative liberties everywhere else, I think you can have really fun results. This one was a quicker study. I think I used a reference of a real flower, but added in some really fun and bright colors. I'm really stretching things out and seeing how far I can take things, and it's really cool. Plus, it's a good reminder of, the things that you learn and apply to actual full illustrations or commissioned pieces or portfolio pieces. A lot of those things are learned from this sort of experimentation that's very lighthearted and then serious and just fun for the heck of it. And for a time there, I was really focused in on making full pieces and things that you can tell have a lot of effort placed into them. And it's important not to forget that all of those little things that you learn, all of the things that make your pieces unique, tend to come from a place of fun experimentation, not thinking too much, being a little bit more bold and excited and curious about the process. And then we have another very story-driven piece. This one is also accompanied by a step-by-step of all of the steps I took to create it, and it was inspired by another sort of story or concept that I had in my brain about a character that's made out of smoke, and this love story between a man and this smoke girl that can only appear once you set things on fire. In this piece, essentially, I had in mind the fact that he was so desperate to see her that he burned all of his belongings, or at least some of his furniture, in order to be able to see her again. It was an out there story and thought, but it just felt really exciting and cool, and things like that where it's creative but ambiguous enough where you can try to visualize how things would look like. It's really ambitious and cool to challenge yourself with, I think. So making her come out of smoke was really cool. Having all of these colors and setting up this color palette was really fun as well. Plus all of the little design elements that try to add something to this story, like this box of matches, I think adds something to it. And I slowly start to add more details to the edges of the composition. It's something that I've had even more fun doing recently, which is adding borders to my illustrations. Slowly I start adding new things and new techniques, new ways of thought. I think it's so cool to see them all overlapping and compounding on each other. And here is another one of my absolute favorites of this year. Again, it turns out that my favorite pieces come from me just drawing for fun and for myself without recording it or thinking I'm going to add it somewhere specific. And this one is a great example of that. Whenever I'm not thinking too much about the expectations of what I want to do, I end up taking more risks and playing with more effects that I don't usually do. And this one is so simple, and yet I love the effect that I was able to create with it. I know I've said ethereal a bunch of times in this video, but that's how this one feels to me. Even the little bleeds and edges of these colors, how these little stars shine. We also have some chromatic aberration, some texture and noise, and the colors are just so pretty. I really like this one. This one I even think it's still my wallpaper on my phone. Yeah, it still is. For some reason. I know it can be a little bit cheesy to like your own work. I feel like we live in a world where you're supposed to make something that's great but not even care about it or like it. And I'm really not a big fan of that. I think that if I want people to like my work, I need to like it myself first. And after a lot of work and lots of ups and downs in my artistic journey, it's always great to just have those like few pieces that you really connect with and enjoy and just be proud of them and happy that you made them, because not all drawings turn out successfully, not all pieces are your favorite, but a few you can really just hold them in your heart, you know? Here we have another one for a process video where I explain the entire process, again inspired by the bright green colors, but now we have the addition of blues. My color palettes have become a little bit more monochromatic, which was something that I was a little bit afraid of before, but I feel like I've come into a place where it's a great challenge for me to try and make something that feels interesting, even if you don't have that much range of colors. I really like the feeling of this one. I was inspired by a calming and summer feeling. I had a few references and a mood that I was going for. And I think my favorite part was probably working on her skirt. Just all of those highlights were really fun. And adding those patches of even more saturated color that just pops through is really satisfying too. This illustration I made as a collaboration with Clip Studio Paint, which was really cool to do and to be able to work with them as well. I just wanted something fun and bright and playful, and I love her expression and pose and her skirt especially. I remember when I was working on this one, like figuring out the perspective and everything. I wanted to draw her legs. I had many plans, but once I found out in like my sketching stage this shape of her skirt, I was sold on it. And I love these colors, especially the teal highlight on a bright pink surface. Just felt really bold and satisfying. And here we have another cozy art corner. This one I think we worked with some references, and my goal was to essentially find something that's rather simple, but use bright colors and fun colors and try to see what we could do with that. So essentially it was a quicker study, so it's a little bit more rough around the edges, again in about 2.5 hours, but it was super fun. And here is another one of my like top 5 favorites of this year. So this is a mix of creating a line work that's essentially made with the textures you'd find on paper and graphite or pencil, but then with really bright and vibrant colors underneath that aren't straightforward. You have lots of nuances and hues of color, but then on top of that, adding lots of effects and little shines and refractions of light that make it feel even more magical and out of this world. I remember it took me a really long time to figure it out, like the color scheme that I was going for. It just wasn't clicking for me at first. You can even see that on like a time lapse that I have as well. I think most, or at least a lot of the pieces that you're seeing today also have time lapses on Patreon. But in this one, I remember you can really see just how many times I changed my mind with the colors. But in the end, it was so satisfying to add those shimmers of light, especially against the dark background. I feel like it just worked really well. I love the combination of colors. And it also feels like she could be a great character by herself. Like, imagine her walking down the stairs from somewhere, coming from above into the earth. You know, it feels very much like she could be a main character of something, in my mind at least. And then we have yet another sticker sheet design, which is the mermaid. Here she is. The base colors for this one was orange. It was inspired by summer, all of those warm and cozy vibes with some ocean elements, again, a mermaid. It was really cool to do. I especially love the fact that she was a mermaid, so drawing her full body was really cool, and making her fit into this world was really fun. It's always cool to draw mermaids and their tails, you know? Plus, using one of my favorite color combinations, which is orange and pink, is always a good time. And here is another one of my favorites. This one also sort of expresses what I was feeling at the time. It was just me drawing for myself, and it sort of invokes what I was feeling in a positive way, which was I was just feeling very peaceful. And again, in a summery mood, I imagined her sitting at a rock and maybe her clothes were turning into the sea. Maybe she's even part of the sea, who knows? But just these colors felt really right together. And once more, it's beginning to feel like I'm getting a lot more comfortable with making things a little bit rougher around the edges. I even started to use a little bit of a glitch effect. All of these colors sort of bleed into each other. There's a lot of difference in hues and lots of saturation in fun places. It's a really simple drawing, but I really love this one. It holds a very special place in my heart. Plus, this one is even my background on my iPad, which is so cool. I think it looks so cool. I really like it. Again, if I don't love my art, who else will, right? And then we have a very fun and bright new piece with 2 characters. This one is available as a step-by-step process. And the goal for this one, I think at first, was to just create these 2 characters that are like opposing each other. And I love the idea of them being like the yin and yang a little bit because of the dark background and the light one. But as soon as I started to add colors and see the potential of making this as magical as possible, you know, since they have wings, I really went all out and added all of the most bright and bubblegummy colors ever. And it was so much fun. It's so freeing to be able to add colors like this. I figured out a few new techniques. We still have lots of transparent surfaces like their wings, so it was really satisfying to work on as well. And again, working with sort of bold borders, I think. It's something that I really didn't do before in my work, and now I do a lot of. And they're super fun, and they add something like new and exciting to the piece. Usually I'll add things that add some context, like objects or smaller like little squares with different perspectives or close-ups of our characters. But here, just making it like stylistically like a design for the fun of it has become a really cool thing to add to my pieces, I think. This one was a lot more simple to make. It was just more of an experiment than anything else. And it was inspired by this purple color that I really love. I even love it more with a bit more blue, like the color in the background of my wall. But I really love this color so much. I found some references that I really liked of clothing with like animal prints and different things like that. But making the base purple and then having some of those bright yellow highlights, and again, all of that messiness in the rendering is really cool. And we're getting closer to the end. This piece was a little bit more recent. I also recorded it and created a full process video of it, of the entire thing. And essentially, I was inspired by a specific pose within, like a character within the trees. And I was really excited by the challenge of drawing a more complex background, like all of the trees and leaves and branches, plus creating a character that felt like they belonged there was really cool. This really soft fabric going through the branches and helping the composition felt really satisfying to make. She feels super mysterious. I bet there is more to her story as well. And I think one of my favorite parts was this corner right here of adding this very bright highlight and how it sort of shines on these branches and the texture that it makes. Pretty much working on the textures of any branches was really fun to do. And this spread you might have seen as well. It was from another YouTube video where I created this character essentially based on the concept of what would happen if rain was a character. And so you can see how like she's completely wet and her hair is like droplets. You can also see all of those little raindrops essentially falling from her dress. I was really inspired by this dress design or shape that had this really wide area that almost looked like clouds. And that's where the idea came from, to create an actual like rain dress, whatever that is. And this was a really fun project. I still really love these colors and the overall approach for this idea. And it really made me think of any other things that we could do, maybe different elements like fire, earth, wind, and she'd be like water. That could be really cool. Nonetheless, I speak a little bit more about that on the actual video, but I realized how cool it could be to, instead of exploring a specific world or moment, being able to just explore a specific character for what they are and making like a full character study of it. That could be really fun too. This one was from another Cozy Art Corner drawing session. Let me see if I have the original. Yeah. We started off with drawing traditionally again with these very simple graphite drawings. They are pretty simple, but I was really inspired by how I'd be able to render all of those leaves in their hair and trying to add fun colors and see where I could take this idea. And I really had lots of fun with the process. And you can see that in the actual session. I even added a base of an even more textured and toned paper underneath and just went ahead and painted on top of it directly, even adding all of that depth with those deeper shades of like green against the bright reds. It's always a fun time. Here was a bit of a quicker piece. This one was just inspired, like in my brain, this idea of light coming from underneath the dress. I also ended up really loving the composition overall of it. So this really bright circle against the black background, and then this oval line that's like framing her really nicely. This one was pretty simple and pretty quick, but I had lots of fun nonetheless. Here is another mysterious piece. I'm still not sure what this one is about. I just really love the composition and the characters, and it was this idea that I had in a sketch that I wanted to try out. But essentially it's open-ended. You can assume whatever you want about this one, but I do really love the colors here. The mix of the colors, especially on her face, like the pinks, oranges into her skin tone, and those touches of blue and almost like purple. It was really cool to really let those colors bleed into each other and not pay too much attention about what's right or wrong, you know? I'm slowly finding ways of letting things just be a little bit messy. And I loved adding this little star in the middle, which really helps to bring the viewer's eyes in. And it's so straight and geometric against all of the softness of the background, which was really satisfying to make. Plus another border, I could say, making things within like a circle. I think I've started to do that more and more, but it's just been so much fun to create borders and creative edges around illustrations. It makes them like even more interesting and not just fit inside of a square or a rectangle. And here's another great example of that. I love the shapes around this illustration in particular. This one is available as a step-by-step, and for me, my favorite part about this one was the water. I love rendering water and also the feathers. This was also the case where it took me a while to get to the colors that felt just right, but I love the reds, like the bright reds contrasting with the green base of this piece. Even their beaks are just like little splashes of red or orange that just shine through, and these little apples. It's so sweet, this one. It's just a girl with her swans. It was inspired by one specific picture of a swan, which is really random, but the shapes were just so enticing. I just wanted to try and draw one, and I did, and I inserted them inside of a piece. And the rendering of this background was also really fun to make, all of these leaves and grass, and as always a lovely black background which really complements all of these details and messiness and just lets you have some space to breathe. This one was from another YouTube video. We drew a different character inspired by a flower, not only by the shapes but also the colors. This was so cool. I remember being just trying to find ideas or inspiration, and instead I found a picture of a flower and I thought I'll just add that to a folder and maybe look at it later. I need something that's more like complex or something else that needs a lot more work, and then I had to stop myself and think, if you're inspired by this flower, then let's just draw that. And that's what I did, and I had a lot of fun. This piece came from the idea of drawing a glass armor. I remember being inspired by different armors, I think on Pinterest, different colored armors like whites and reds, like really cool in different materials, but still within the shapes of a regular armor. And I thought, why not, instead of adding a color, why not remove it altogether and just make like a glass or transparent armor. And again, as you know, I'm already obsessed with transparent elements. So this time I really tried to create an armor that felt fun and interesting, but you could still see some of her clothes underneath, some of her skin, some reflections. even some of these effects that look like rainbows shining through. Very magical. It ended up looking even more ethereal than I had in mind. And these colors are some of my favorite. It's so shiny and glistening and pretty. It was so much fun. And we have again another different border for this illustration, which was cool to create because I wanted something that made her stand out a little bit. And if she was just set in like a squared or rectangle frame, it felt like it didn't do her justice. So adding this sort of almost shield-like frame and edges felt super satisfying. But the colors here are definitely my favorite part. And one of my most recent pieces, which was made for another cozy art corner. This time I've been inspired by a new edition of a new small thing, like a small technique to add to all of it, which is using the smudge tool more and blurring out edges, making things even more dreamy. The smudge tool is again something that I always knew was there, but I just could never quite use it. I've always just really loved rendering pieces manually and still leaving in some of that texture and natural transitions. But here I'm trying to take things a little bit further and really smudge in all of these edges, some of the areas even, playing with colors and textures and all of it together to create new effects and a new mood and feeling. Again, it makes me so excited to see how things compound on each other and how I keep evolving my techniques into something that feels new and refreshing, but still being able to express my thoughts and my stories and the characters that I'm passionate about. Don't get me wrong, it's not a linear process. It's not like I figure things out every couple of weeks and I'm just absolutely sure of what I'm doing. There are a lot of techniques that fell through the cracks that just didn't work or didn't feel right. But to be able to keep exploring and to stay curious about these types of things is what keeps me going, I think. So as always, something that I say so many times on my Patreon, I am a firm believer that you should do what you want to do, what excites you and what you're curious to do, even if it doesn't quite fit with your workflow right now or with the themes that you're used to drawing. Maybe that's the cool thing, is adding techniques that don't usually make a lot of sense with what you're doing, but blending them in a fun way, an exciting way that creates something unique. I think that's where the real fun is. So I hope that you've enjoyed this art tour. This definitely was a different video to make. I was a little bit nervous. I'm not sure if you're going to enjoy it, but let me know in the comments if you think this is a good format and if it's interesting to see. I think it's always a good idea to slow things down and just be able to look at your own work, see where you've improved, where you still have space to improve, sometimes to just be happy and grateful for the changes that you've made, to really soak it all in instead of being constantly rushed into the next best thing. I'm not really sure of how long this video is. If it is too long, I do apologize. But I hope this was insightful. I want to give a big thank you and shout out to all of my patrons who've been supporting me. It's in great part because of their support that I get to do what I do and draw so much every day, so I owe them the world. If you want to see more behind the creation of these pieces, my thought process, some tips, techniques that I use, and just essentially follow me throughout all of this journey, you can check out my Patreon page and see what tier fits you the best. As always, thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!